Alrighty, good afternoon. Just as a little FYI, I feel quite positive about what I'm about to say because I have two beautiful pink and grey galahs in front of me eating the tall stalks of what appears to be the dandelions, which is, of course, their food source. So when everything is mowed down and kept short, they have no food. Human beings are not really much different. Still waiting. Okay, hopefully the connection is now stable. Still a bit glitchy, but we'll continue on. There is, or has been, in my observation, a very large miscalculation done by completely independent organisations, groups, acting in what more than likely was the. Okay, hopefully it's stable now. Has unfortunately resulted in the structural creation of containment environments in the digital and in the physical. Now, the number one reasoning for this is due to the women's equality liberation movement. As I said, not necessarily bad on its own merit. It's kind of all the things that came attached to it. One of them was no-fault divorce. Again, not necessarily immediately destructive. The real problem seems to be the combination of no-fault divorce and of the increase, the astronomical increase in the level of mortgage-based residential house ownership, property ownership. This has created a situation of an intergenerational debt trap, which has unintentionally opened up the way for a systematized enslavement of the generations below. As these generations did not consent to the original mortgages, those generations did not consent to those mortgages, but have suffered greatly due to the acclimatization period of this kind of no-fault divorce paradigm. So it's the two things combined. The third, the removal of the influence of the church, and the vacuum kind of left by a spirituality that would have filled this void has been filled by materialism, most strongly concentrated in residential housing, and then basically a religion has been created, the kind of investment religion doctrine in which the mortgage is elevated to a position where it just shouldn't be. So some really, really serious conversations are going to need to take place. There's a reason every time we see on the news a report about the property prices, why people are getting shown, like they always do the same file footage of someone being shown through this kind of 1930s or 40s or 50s house, or a colonial house, whatever it is. They're not actually colonial houses, they're just kind of imitation. It's because of this. There is not appropriate, or there hasn't been appropriate adaptation and acceptance in in the actual, like in actually what these tools and what these concepts are, what this situation of mortgages is. There is a radical, like completely opposing strategy, concept, and understanding of these tools, of these contracts, by a ever increasing rift between the masculine and the feminine, mothers and fathers, between parents, whatever it is. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty details of gender. In fact, the gender culture wars are actually just a manifestation of this core underlying problem. It was not the way that it is sold now about mortgages, and that this is how you get home ownership, and this is what people need, and this is interest rates. This just wasn't the case, and we haven't taken into account all the changes that have been made and how they've affected the overall thing. And the most damaging thing is the creation of this digital environment, which is now at the pinnacle of our conversation. The fact that it hasn't been regulated and is now attempted to be controlled is like a hyper example of what's already existing within our culture. And it's not going to be easy to get out of this, but it's my belief that from countless examples that I've witnessed, that women, majoritively women, a statistically higher amount of women ending up in divorce with a mortgage. There needs to be some really new, strong kind of regulations to do with women being left with mortgages in divorce and children. This really does just create a kind of just an insane situation that is not sustainable in any way. It's kind of like the continuation of mortgages that were gained in a spousal arrangement, and then the continuation of that. It's really got to be null and void on divorce. There cannot be any of this joint. Basically, it's pretty self-explanatory. The idea of divorce for the majority of our culture's history has been, really seriously limited thing. The idea of mortgages and properties is a really seriously limited thing. It's a really dangerous tool, but if used correctly, it's wonderful. The combination of these two elements, and then, as I said, this continuation of leaving women with a mortgage and the children, and then all these things, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work in any way. It is created. God. They're not continuing on these things. They're not understanding what this is doing. They're not understanding the interconnected nature of our finances, of our economies, of our global, distribution and supply and demand. All these things, and are not seen to be appropriately concerned with the structural integrity of these interconnected systems. I don't know if that makes sense. It's not unfull of it. It's not something that's missing from women. It's not that impaired. It is just it's a difference in instinctual activated elements of what's activated in men versus what's activated in women. And when very, very large elements like this are changed, one after the other, and we can see the result, it's really important to focus in and to find the real elements that have changed and that have led to this situation, which is being under addressed by women, and basically ignored by men. And so it's leading us to an inevitable dystopian future. The proportion of PR and marketing and sales content towards women's instinctual nurturing tendencies has completely hijacked the household. And as I said, it's basically a religion, a pseudo kind of cult religion that has been formed around the idea of a mortgage-backed asset in residential property ownership, and it is leading to the complete destruction of our civilized societies. We can't go on. So I would suggest a backdating of the last 20 years on all mortgage contracts that were entered into in the sanctity of marriage. This is really where these need to be immediately brought to an end. We can't continue this. It just doesn't. There's too many tools and systems and socialized assistance packages for women that are held in this, so they will make decisions based on that, and they will not appropriately address their debts. And so, yeah, it's like a form of kind of, it's actually, in my determination, it's a form of abandonment and enslavement. It's really, really not a lot different to leave a woman with a child in a mortgage that was entered into in marriage. It's not much different than leaving her in a third world country with a child. It's especially if that is trending as much as it has been, and especially when the infill, so the assistance offered, is creating a extremely socialized government system. It's undermining the integrity of our entire market, our entire property market, our entire economy, our entire trust-based system, our entire education. And unfortunately, this is very true. So the abandonment of religious constraints within marriages, okay, well, it's yet to really be seen whether that's good. My exposure that this has created a environment and a complete completely structurally designed environment of servitude is really proof of that. And so if the power of the church to intervene has been lowered, then it's time for all the entities and organizations around the world that wish to prevent this type of degradation to our societies is to put pressure on the banks. And I think this is the way to do it. It's been extremely irresponsible. Again, it's kind of been limited by social pressures. There would have been, in the early days, while we haven't had time to have enough information to kind of really see the damage this was doing, it would have been seen to be, unsavory to force payment on residential houses under mortgage, but it just doesn't work like that. It's not. It's if you enter into a mortgage in a marriage, it's really got to be it's got to be all out. There can't be a maintenance of housing or anything like that. And hopefully a readjustment in this area should it should stimulate the property market and open up the opportunities to to redo this. There's got to be I think if this has happened within 10 years, then the original contract needs to be brought in, and if there is a shortfall due to a mass kind of exodus from the property market, then this shortfall is to be met by both parties on the original contractual mortgage within the marriage. Hopefully that all makes sense. If there's any questions, let me know. But yeah, we cannot continue this married at first sight, mortgaged at first sight, separation, subsidized Ponzi scheme any longer in this country. I'm not really sure what it's like in other countries, but it's stalled out the whole thing. It's stagnated the whole thing. And as I said, the worst case, it's leading to the structural creation of a social structure that is basically best described as servitude, intergenerational servitude, and that's not something that I'm going to sit and let happen. So yeah, it's time for people to start speaking up. This is families from the 80s, children that parents divorced in the 80s, all the way up to now. There needs to be an appropriate telling of what this experiment in divorce has done to our societies. We've got to give the church or the churches their time to reference the exodus from their control, and then also on top of that, the financial situation that this has created, which I think the emphasis on the religious exodus took a lot of the focus, and the increase in media and screen-based media projections, which are very, very, very effective in indoctrination, have really led to a mania level event to do with residential asset ownership and financing and mortgages and things like that. Cool. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing the Prime Minister in handcuffs very soon. Thank you.